When getting started in real estate, many people are focused in on the property, the location, and how much money they'll make. However, few consider how they'll actually manage the property once tenants move in. Underestimating all the factors that it takes for successful property management can be your biggest mistake. Today, we're going to discuss how to develop a go-forward strategy to ensure that you have happy tenants and a happy bank account. Hey House Stackers, welcome to episode 21 of the Stacking Houses podcast, where we're helping working professionals create a solid plan B, a side hustle of passive streams of income through real estate investing. I'm your host, Damon Santamaria, and my goal for each show is to provide you with some practical and inspiring information so that you can create a solid financial plan for yourself. So to help you on your journey, I want to give you our beginner's guide to getting started in real estate, which outlines all of the key steps that investors need to take to acquire your first property. And you can pick this up simply by going to stackinghouses.com/beginner. And while you're there, you can check out our blog, my free book, as well as a great training on where Jim and I are finding awesome deals in today's landscape. So today we're going to discuss property management, and I want you to know that this section applies if you hire a professional team to manage your properties or you self-manage. If there is one podcast that you should pay special attention to and take copious notes, it's this one. Property management is the most important factor in running any investment property. I don't care if it's a single-family home or a large apartment complex. How well you manage your property and your tenants will have a direct impact on the financial performance of the property. When I first got started in real estate, I heard other professionals state that they would rather have a B-level property and an A-level property management team than have an A property and a B-level team, and it's absolutely true. And let me explain why. First off, your property manager, including yourself if you're self-managing, will have direct interaction with all of your tenants. Your tenants are your customers, and your customers are responsible for providing the revenue to the business. Think of your property manager as marketing, the tenant qualification process, the sales team, and customer service departments for your organization. Your property manager will also be responsible for coordinating any maintenance on the property and making sure that operationally things run smoothly. Many times they'll also have functions of accounting and providing tax documentation as well. The typical fee for all of these functions is between 8 and 10% of the gross rental revenue. However, some will actually take a flat fee versus a percentage. Now let's take a deeper dive into each one of these areas, starting with marketing. Your property manager will be responsible for filling vacancies at the property, and typically they will advertise openings on their own company website, on other sites such as Craigslist, Zillow, and Facebook, and other mediums. They will also advertise in local newspaper. Wait a minute, do people still use and read newspapers? Anyway, they will also provide signage in front of your property and advertise the vacancy with a website and a phone number to call. They'll field incoming calls and inquiries from the web and begin the application process, including background and credit checks. And finally, they will help establish the parameters of the tenant profile consistent with the type of property that you're renting. So if you're running an A-class property, you'll have more stringent requirements for income, credit, and employment than you would for a C-class property. And the second piece is the qualification process. And as I mentioned previously, the best way to avoid vacancies is to not have them in the first place. And let's face it, everyone needs shelter. It's one of the items on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but sometimes people will get desperate and do and say anything just to qualify. And this is a critical time because you have a vacant property and the clock is ticking. One of the best ways to understand the character of a prospective tenant is to run a credit and background check. Now, this is not foolproof. However, it's better than just going on a handshake alone. And I would recommend that this is part of the application process and should come with a nominal fee, perhaps $20 or $25 to cover the actual cost of running the verifications. But you also want to be careful because in some states like Washington, the application fee must be the exact amount of the background check. But in all, this will help separate those that are serious from those that will just waste your time. So in addition to having positive credit and a background check, your tenants should also have sufficient income to support making the rent payments. And as a general rule of thumb, their income should be at least 3 times the monthly rental amount. Additionally, new applicants should have a clean eviction history and positive references to match. Now let's discuss advertising and the tenant screening process. So before we jump in, I want to make you aware, if you're not already, with the fair housing laws. And these laws protect people from being discriminated against when looking at either renting or buying a property. And as a landlord, you need to follow these laws, which help protect against certain classes, which include race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, as well as disability. Now, discrimination of these protected classes extend to the marketing and advertising of the property as well. And this is something that I take very seriously, and I have a zero tolerance policy for all of my properties. It's just something that you want to be aware of because discrimination on any level is just not cool. And here's a quick pro tip. If you are self-managing, host an open house on a specific date like a Saturday. Tell all the prospective tenants to go to the open house for a showing versus setting up individual showings because this will save you time by avoiding the constant running back and forth to the house for each person. It'll also create greater demand or competition since everyone will be viewing the house simultaneously. Okay, on to customer service. Now, your property manager will communicate to your tenants their responsibility for making the payments on the lease. And this is an important buffer between you and the tenant because I must admit, I'm a bit of a softie when it comes to sob stories. For the properties that I do self-manage, I find myself falling into the emotional trap of believing all the long, sad stories my tenants have for being late on rent. So having a firm, assertive manager will teach your tenants to make their payments on time. And here's another quick pro tip. I like to institute a late fee policy and include it in all of my leases. If the full rent is not paid by the 3rd of the month, then a $30 fee is imposed. You may consider adding an additional fee for each day over the due date because this will give your tenants incentive to pay faster versus waiting since they're already late. Now, your manager will also field maintenance requests from your tenants, and this can include anything from a broken toilet to a leaky roof. And you want to take these maintenance requests seriously because it'll help prevent deferred issues which can cause costly damage if not properly fixed. And if you're going to fix something, do it right. Make sure that it's up to code. As I mentioned in other sections, when I first got started out, I had a newly rehabbed house that I just purchased in Atlanta, Georgia. And it just so happened that it was the dead of winter, and my property manager was working on finding tenants to fill the vacant house. But at that time, there was a freak cold spell in Atlanta, and it got down to 6 degrees. Unfortunately, the water had not been turned off, and the pipes froze. Soon thereafter, a kitchen pipe burst, causing $5,000 worth of damage. Now, my insurance denied responsibility because my policy had a clause stating that they would not cover damages like vandalism or broken pipes while the house is sitting vacant. And this is something that you want to take a look at all of your insurance agreements. It's just something you want to be aware of. But this was an inexperienced property management company that didn't have the proper protocols in place, especially for onboarding new clients. And this leads me to the next responsibility of maintaining the property. So let's discuss the maintenance piece because this is one of the largest cash flow killers, if not the largest. Most of the properties I purchase are through what are called turnkey providers that have already gone through an extensive rehab on the property. This favors the busy investor since many aspects of the house will be either new or like new. Typically, they put a new roof on the property, there's a new HVAC system, there's new appliances, etc. But over time, things do break and need to be replaced. A good property manager will be in constant contact with the tenants so there are no delays which go unnoticed. I like to have a clause in my agreement that states that any repair over $300 needs to be approved by me before completing. Additionally, if it's a big ticket item, I like to receive 3 competing bids from contractors to ensure that I'm not only getting a fair price, but also there's no conflicts of interest. For example, the contractor is the brother of the property management owner. Let's also talk about getting a home warranty. So you may want to consider getting a home warranty when buying the property. Warranties work similar to an insurance policy in that you pay an annual premium and will most likely have a deductible, usually between $50 and $100 for maintenance calls. They may give you some peace of mind knowing that the home appliances and systems will be taken care of if things break after closing. Warranties work best for those of us that aren't very handy, like me, or perhaps you're just too busy to deal with it. However, these are not perfect. Just like insurance companies, their first stance is to deny the claim, and believe me, the attorneys that write these agreements have conveniently thought of most exclusions to avoid paying for really expensive items. The best practice is to have the seller pay for the warranty at closing as well. So the last item is the tenant turn, and the turn or make ready is when one tenant leaves and the house is being made rent ready for the next tenants to come in. And this can be a frustrating time for landlords for a few reasons. The first reason is that the turn causes the house to be vacant, thus no rental income. The second reason is that during the inspection, you typically find out how tenants have been treating your property if you have not been doing semi-annual inspections from the beginning. And we've all heard of tenants moving out in the middle of the night. These are things that horror stories are made of, and one of the main reasons why people don't want to be landlords. I have found all sorts of fun things like smelly diapers, kids drawing on the walls, bags of garbage piled up in the garage and in the backyard, and a few more things that I'm afraid to admit happened in one of my properties. And if you're lucky, the house will only need a fresh coat of paint and the locks to be changed. But 9 times out of 10, the cost will be in the thousands of dollars, especially for lower Class C properties. And the longer it takes the house to be rent ready, the longer the vacancy. Here's what you should do as a professional investor. Number 1, find higher class neighborhoods to invest in, like B class. The cash flow isn't as great, however, the tenants tend to take better care of the property and tend to stay longer than C-class properties. You also want to thoroughly vet new tenants on the front end and make sure that they have enough income to support the higher cost of rent. I've found that tenants who pay a minimum of $900 a month tend to treat the property better and have less drama. Also, make the security deposit slightly higher than the monthly rent, in this case, $1,000. This increase will mentally prepare your tenants to be more responsible because they have more financial incentive. Finally, write into the lease that there will be semi-annual inspections. This sets the right expectation that Big Brother will be keeping a close eye on the property and will also help proactively monitor maintenance issues. Once you connect with a prospective organization, you'll want to do your homework before contacting them, and this includes looking at online reviews, visiting their website to see what their inventory looks like, subscribing to their mailing list, and then if everything checks out, interviewing them to see if they're a good fit for your investing objectives. And here's 10 key questions that you'll want to ask. Number 1, if the property has recently been rehabbed, what type of warranty will they give you and what's included in that warranty? Number 2, how many clients do they serve and how long have they been in business? Number 3, what types of fees do they charge for tenant placement, rent collection, lease renewal, and if they add markup to the maintenance amounts? Number 4, if the maintenance is done in-house or if it's outsourced to a third party. Number 5, are there management fees assessed even if the property is sitting vacant? Number 6, Do they conduct periodic property inspections or tenant check-ins? Number 7, what are the tenant screening requirements like income before accepting a placement? Number 8, if you decide to sell the property, do you need to list it with them? Number 9, what is the minimum amount needed before they'll contact you for maintenance request approval? For example, anything over $300 needs your approval with the exception of an emergency. And finally, number 10, if things really go downhill, how are you able to cancel and get out of the agreement? Having these answers to the questions will help you avoid a bad partnership that can last for years. As with any contract, you want to have a legal professional review before you sign. So I hope this has been helpful because property management is perhaps the most important factor in running your business. And if you're seriously considering investing in yourself and becoming a professional, I highly encourage you to sign up for Stacking Houses Academy, where you can learn the step-by-step process that Jim and I took to each grow our multi-million-dollar businesses. And finally, if you liked what you heard today, I would appreciate a like, a share, or a review on the platform that you're listening on, because it really does help some of us little guys that are just getting started on our podcasting journey. And it also helps you and other house stackers find our great content. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, I want to give you our beginner's guide to getting started in real estate, which outlines the key steps that all investors need to take to acquire your first property. And you can pick this up simply by going to stackinghouses.com/beginner. And until next time, happy investing, my friends.